What's up, headbangers? Today, I'm spinning the wax with Scott Taysom of Cloak, and we're listening to In Solitude's 2013 album, Sister. Don't go anywhere, it all starts right now. Hello, headbangers, and welcome back to Spinning the Wax, where we listen to your favorite artists' favorite records. My name's John Garcia, aka Stay Puffed, the Metal Marshmallow, and your friendly neighborhood headbanger. Today, I have the pleasure of hosting Scott Taysom, guitarist and vocalist of Atlanta blackened heavy metal band Cloak. This is a band I've been a fan of for a little while now, and their 2023 album, Black Flame Eternal, was one of my favorites that came out that year, and I highly recommend it if you haven't listened to it already. Cloak falls somewhere in between Tribulation, Watain, and Motorhead, all of which are big influences on Scott and his bandmates, but maybe none more so than the record we're about to listen to on Spinning the Wax. Scott brings on the third and final album from Swedish heavy metal band In Solitude, 2013's Sister. He talks about how emotional this record is for him and how instrumental it was to forging his identity and what he wanted in a band. As an extra kicker, he talks about seeing In Solitude headline a show with Watain and Tribulation and how that cemented his dream of becoming a metal lifer. Though the band broke up just a few years after Sister came out, its influence on today's extreme metal scene and its gothic influences cannot be understated. We also chat about Cloak's new drummer, Matt Morris, and how jamming and writing for the new upcoming record is going, as well as the artist's desire to always evolve and explore new chapters, how Cloak manages to be a DIY band in today's music scene, and how Atlanta and its surrounding geography is actually a perfect influence for a black metal band. Through it all, Scott takes us through plenty of In Solitude stories, background behind the songs, how the band influenced him as an artist and the trajectory of his band, as well as why Sister is and has become a timeless record. My friends, if you enjoy this video, please give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Also, maybe even share it with a friend or two. That helps us out more than you know. If you're feeling extra supportive, you can go over to patreon.com/spinningthewax and support the show directly. Thank you to all of you who've shared it, contributed, listened, or just engaged with the show so far. So no more babble from me. This is it, everyone. Episode 18 of Spinning the Wax, where Cloak's Scott Taysom listens to Sister by In Solitude. Please welcome Scott Taysom to the show. Scott, it's good to see you again, my friend. How are you doing, dude?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, it's been a while since we ran into each other in Nashville, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
At that point, Black Flame Eternal hadn't come out. I don't even know if you had. I remember y'all played Seven Thunders live, but I don't remember even if there was even a song out yet from that record,
No,
real
it was
people.
just shy of being out. That was 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So it was like early winter of 23. Yeah, we were premiering Seven Thunders and Holy Dark live already. Then the first single, Invictus, came out on March 1st. So it was just shy of the first single release, but
Yeah, and I remember when we talked, we were talking about how every band was fucked for the pandemic, right? It's not a competition or anything like that, but certainly Cloak releasing a record in late 2019 and then not even getting to tour it and everything like that, especially with how fucking good The Burning Dawn was. And we talked about this before, it felt like there was kind of some lost time and everything like that. But after that, and after we spoke, y'all were fucking road dogs to the extreme
Yeah,
after that. I know,
yeah.
you popped over to Europe a bunch of times, did the US again. I had James McBain from Hell Ripper on the show a little while
Oh,
back.
cool.
And, I know that y'all did a run together and he was singing your praises and loves the new album and everything like that. So
Awesome.
yeah, how was life after that? Touring for 1,000 days straight.
Right. Yeah, we picked up pretty good steam coming out of the or coming into the Black Flame cycle. So right out the gate, we did a festival in Baltimore, Hell in the Harbor,
Mm,
and then we did the UADA tour that fall. So that was all 2023.
mhm.
And a couple things in between, and those were all really good. Last year we did a bunch in a row, like you mentioned. We did Hell Ripper in Europe, which was our first European tour,
Yeah.
which was great. We hit a lot of the festivals. Finally got over there to do the festival circuit. Not every one, but we hit a good bit of them. Some
Mhm.
smaller, some bigger, like Brutal Assault,
Yeah.
Partisan, and then some like smaller ones. And then we did club shows alongside Hell Ripper and a younger Swedish band called Sarkader, who were really, really good as well.
Yeah, I think they've got an album coming out. If not, it's already out by the
Yeah,
time this comes out. But they're really really good, really tight, really
yeah,
not old school thrash because that would be wrong. But yeah, they're just a thrash band and they're fucking good.
yeah. They mix like certain elements of some of the Uppsala scene, like DGL and Vorm and stuff like that, which I love. So that was
Yeah,
really cool. And they were super professional. I mean, they were like 19, 20 years
they
old.
look like they're just out of high school on their music
Yeah, and they were
videos.
super serious, super professional, really, really cool guys. So yeah, that tour was great. And then we signed on to do a Deicide tour because we were doing those two European tours back to back, and then we had this kind of like middle area where we signed on to do Deicide in the States.
Hmm.
And that was like just shy of 5 weeks. So we had about a 3 week break after Europe, did the US and Canada
Hmm.
with DSI. That was great, obviously. And then we had a week off and went right back over to Europe. Yeah, sorry, just with the same lineup we actually did in the States in 2023. So it
Hmm.
was with Uada and Ghost Bath again. On a tour bus for the first time, we all shared. So that was really, really
Oh, cool.
different, and really nice actually to be able to do that.
Yeah, I
So
believe it.
that all of them back to back was a great push for the band and for that record in particular.
Yeah, and I'm so happy to hear that, especially with how, with what happened before and everything like that. Did you feel like getting to Europe that there was, a wind with that and that you were able to kind of, I don't know, get your claws into some of the people out there? Because I always hear about bands like wanting to get over there because of, especially with the type of music that Cloak plays, it's a little bit more, it's bigger over there than it is in the States. How did you find that?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say because certain cities people definitely knew us already, and
Hmm.
that was really cool. And then
Fuck yeah.
some cities people were just learning about us. So I think the last record could have had more of a push from the label end in Europe. It was lacking a little bit over there, if I'm being honest. But
Hmm.
I think us getting over there and then going back over there was probably the best thing we could have done.
Yeah.
Even if we were a little hesitant about doing back to back with one US in between. It was just a lot in a row. It was
Hmm.
3 months straight, which was new for us, but it was totally worth it. And like you said, it's more of their style of metal, maybe more than the US.
Sure.
So it was cool to connect with those fans over there. Definitely. I can't wait to go back over there. I really like touring there.
Yeah, and I mean, and just the fact that you guys are able to get over there as well, I think, is
Mm,
also a massive like accomplishment and feather in your cap. So kudos to
definitely,
you and the
definitely.
boys. You know.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was a nice accomplishment, and they you've heard it before. They do treat bands a little bit better over there. The
Yeah.
venues are really nice. You get fed, and so that was a whole different world. Because we're used to the States where it's like every man for themselves,
Yeah.
which is
Exactly.
which is fine for like you build character for sure. You
Mhm.
get a little tough touring the US, so it's okay.
Yeah, I bet that tour bus felt like a fucking Four Seasons for you.
Yeah, it was nice not having to get right out of the show, get in a van, go to a hotel, or drive through the night. Rather, you just get on a tour bus, you go to sleep, and then you wake up in the next city. So that was Yeah, I love that. It's going to be hard to come back to a band after that, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it's okay.
until the next time, right? That'll put fuel in your fire to get the tour bus
Definitely.
for the next time. And
Yeah.
I'm sure that we'll talk about all that in a little bit, but let's get into why we are here today. We're here to listen to music. We're here to listen to albums. Like, who fucking does this anymore? Well, I do, Scott. I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Same.
I know that this record is huge for you because when we were talking, Sean mentioned, your former drummer mentioned about how Cloak would not exist if this record you hadn't heard. So tell me why you love In Solitude's Sister.
Yeah, I think that's a true statement. What Sean said, that record brought me and him together in a certain way where I remember he showed it to me, and I have my LP for kind of visual reference
Yes,
here.
I love it when people bring their LPs on.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
I like to just kind of take a look at it, but it's just a very important record. Whereas Sean showed it to me right when it came out, I actually wasn't familiar with the band.
Yeah.
But although I liked a lot of the, like I mentioned, the Uppsala stuff and then the Devil's Blood and things like that. So this kind of hit somewhere in between. And I thought it was so weird the first time I heard it. I was like, this is really different. Especially that first track, and then when Death Knows Where comes in.
Yeah.
It's a strange record, but I kept listening to it and kept listening to it. I remember I had it. He gave me a burned CD, Sean did, and I had it in my car, and I would listen to it every day, going to work, just doing whatever. And it just grew on me, and especially, we'll get to it, but especially like The Buried Sun and Pallet Hands back to back.
Dude, Pallet Hands is my favorite song on the record, man.
Yeah, and this is a record where it's so special and emotional to me that I actually don't listen to it all the time.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's not like I'm putting on like an 80s heavy metal record, which is another genre that I love. But you could listen to I could listen to Dokken every day, or I could listen to bands like that. But when it comes to more, I guess, spiritually driven albums, like this, like The Devil's Blood, like certain black metal records, I can't listen to them every day. I have to be in a certain mindset. And there are songs in there that are so emotionally fueled for me personally that it just hits in a certain way.
Is that because just like the subject matter gets to you, or like it reminds you of something, or just the fact that you lived a certain time while experiencing those songs?
All three.
Okay,
all three of those. It brings me back to a time, to a certain time in my life where I was maybe a little bit lost, and then Cloak got more together and got going more, and I became found, as cliche or cheesy as that sounds, but it gave me more purpose to my life. So which I already had music heavily in my life, but Cloak was sort of my life's work, like an amalgamation of my life's work all together in something where I could do something a little more artistic, which I felt I was always there was always a calling for me to do that. So I think it reminds me of that. It reminds me of beginning a friendship with new people, because Max also came into the groove when this came out, and we bonded over this record too.
Hell yeah.
So another important fact though is we saw them, Tribulation on Formulas of Death, and Watain on the Wild Hunt on that tour. And I think I remember the date. I think it was November 2nd of 2013. And that show changed my entire life. I'd seen Watain a bunch before that. I saw them on the Lawless Darkness tour. But seeing all those bands together, I said, I have to do something like this.
Yeah.
That show was life-changing. And it was in, I don't know if you ever went to the Masquerade, the old Masquerade.
Not the old Masquerade, no.
Okay, so it was in Hell, which was, fitting, but it's the bottom room, because it was double story.
Yeah.
And it only was like a 500 cap room, but seeing all that, and I mostly went for these guys, and they were, Tribulation opened, and Sean had also given me the Formulas of Death, and that was amazing to see. That actually sold me a little more on them, seeing them live in that era. That's such a special era for that band.
Yeah, because they really completely changed after that.
They did, and then but then they also had changed so much from the horror to that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was that's my favorite record from them. It always will be. That's such a special era for
Fuck
that
yeah.
band. And then, but then, yeah, seeing these guys, and obviously seeing Watain, and it was just like that show is such a reason why we are doing what we do today. I think it just stuck with me for so long.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear that too because like I just like knowing and talking to you guys, I know those three bands are like pillars for that, and it's just interesting to see that, you know, that it had a like a tangible thing moment that you went to an event that like really sparked that, which is
For
really cool.
sure, and definitely, and just seeing all those bands together, like I mentioned, and I was 23.
Mm,
Your mind is still developing, and you're still soaking in everything like a sponge. So that it was just like the perfect time to see all that shit.
yeah.
So good, such a special time in my life. Like I like where Cloak has grown, and I like what we're doing now.
Hmm.
Probably more than ever, but I like cherish that time a lot for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And so one thing before we get into the record, one thing I also want to talk about is so you mentioned about how it took you a little bit to get into it and how weird it was and stuff like that. I listened to this off of Sean's recommendation because I hadn't like experienced them either. And I was like, oh, if
Cool.
like Cloaks likes these guys, let me see what they're about. And listening to it from whatever it was, 2022, 10 years later, after Ghost is big, Tribulation has kind of morphed their sound. You've got Grave Pleasures doing their thing, which
Yeah.
I can hear a lot of his style of vocal in this somewhere. And so now I feel like if people hadn't heard this record and have gone back in 2025 to listen to it, it may not be as weird to them, but it's very much like like there's so much Merciful Fate still like wound
Yeah.
around this in this like gothic luster where it's still you can see where Tribulation and Grave Pleasures and whatever that style kind of started to bubble up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I was curious if you had any thought with that, as far as like, I mean, because I think one of Ghost's big albums came out around the same time that this was, and they were both in, the towns that they're in are far apart, but they are in the same country and working in the same like areas and clubs and scenes and stuff like that.
That's a good point. Yeah, because Ghost had released their second album in 2012, I think. So that was right before this, and then they released kind of the album that pushed them even further, Meliora,
Yeah,
in
2015. Yeah,
2015.
yeah, yeah.
And I like both those records a lot as
Yeah.
well. But yeah, so I think this coming in between, I think Sweden has something really special going, or Europe in general had something special
Hmm.
going on in the early 2010s. There was obviously Lawless Darkness. There was this Formulas, like I mentioned. There was also Morbus Kron, which was a huge record for us, Sweben. That was alongside this one, I think, as a
Mm.
special record for us. Venenum from Germany was huge for us. But also not to mention In Solitude's second record, The World of Flesh, the Devil,
It's
that
so
was
good.
just as
Yeah.
important for us. That was such a great record. Um,
That one to me feels more just like not I don't want to say straightforward heavy metal record, but it's more just heavy metal than it is
oh
what
yeah,
Sister is,
for sure. And
Yeah.
I probably listen to that one more now, like I said, because it's like this one is a little harder for me to listen to all the time. But
Sure.
World of Flesh is fucking great. I love that record. Yeah, I think like you said, after kind of the more rock 70s influenced rock stuff was coming out of Sweden more, you had like Lucifer,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
bands like that. Then it got a little, I don't want to say like tainted, but a little bit. It got a little overplayed.
It's like more mainstream. I think more
A little
people
more
were doing that
mainstream.
style than were previously, I feel like.
Yeah, it was less, yeah, I mean, it was just like less special after a while, to be
Mm.
honest. So I think these guys doing something which is still more unique than those bands that we mentioned, is just something very, very time and place and very special.
Yeah. And I guess we should say also for anybody that doesn't know, this band broke up in 2015.
Yeah,
It looks like,
sad
yeah,
day.
maybe one of these days. I don't know if they're gonna like come back around or something.
I've heard, yeah, I keep up with, interviews and stuff, and I've heard like Gottfried, the bassist, say nothing's ever dead, like little vague statements like that. I
Of
heard it.
course.
I'm friends with the guy from the band. I should mention, if people like this record, check out the new Night Eternal album from
Oh yeah,
Germany.
yeah, yeah.
It's really good. That was my album of the year, probably. Was it, I guess, 2023. And we made friends with them when we went over to Europe. Rob, the guitar player I talked to, and we were kind of mutual fans of each other already, so that
Oh
was
cool.
cool. We got to
Yeah.
connect that way. Um, but he said he ran into Pele, the singer of In Solitude, and they said something like, "Yeah, we're doing one reunion show, but it's at a friend's wedding, and we're only playing Blue Oyster Cult songs," or something like that. It was something, so typical for these guys. But yeah, I have small faith they might do something else, but I also think these guys are um, such like true to themselves type characters that they might not, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's got to be the perfect moment for that to get back
Yeah,
together. I
you don't want
understand.
it to be like a not even a cashing in thing, but like you want it to be sincere.
Yeah.
And I think Henke, the guitarist, has already been doing his own stuff for so long. I think he might even play in Viagra Boys. He played in Ghost
Oh
for a
shit.
while. Yeah, he played
Yeah, that I
for
did know.
them. Yeah, yeah. I think he was under the whole Ghost lawsuit thing
Fun.
when that came out. So
Yeah,
that
but I bet he's got some stories
didn't
to
go
say.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, me and Sean went to he got us in this festival they were playing here, Shaky Knees, just to see Ghost one
Yeah, I
night.
know Shaky Knees.
Yeah, when Henko was playing for them, because him and Sean kept in touch. But I know like Uno plays, and what's that band? It is the girl from that played in The Oath.
Maggot Heart.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Maggot Heart. He plays in that band. But yeah, they're all kind of doing their own thing. I think except for the other guitar player, I have no idea what that guy's doing.
Yeah.
Saturnalia Temple took in the two brothers. I think they're playing in that band, and then they play in a band with Eric from Watain No Future. So they're all doing these like weird things, but like this is the band we're all waiting to come back.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, exactly. And hey, given dude, Nevermore said that they're trying to come back. I don't know if you saw that earlier. So just like, what the fuck? I don't know anything anymore. We'll just leave it until like one of these days you'll see a new In Solitude record. Maybe that's 20 years down the road. Maybe it's in a different universe. We don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't want them to do a whole like Motley Crue or Kiss thing either, where it's like back and forth, or even Slayer.
I was gonna say Slayer is a fine example right now.
Which Slayer to me retired way too early. They should have just said we're taking a hiatus, but that's another story.
Yeah, maybe we can get into that when we're talking there, because I mean even Kerry King has said that as well. But hey man, are you ready to get into this record, dude? All right, let's do this. In Solitude, Sister, in 3, 2, 1, play.
Yeah, the way it starts out, even that's such a unique riff in and of itself.
And already I can see that influence, from even through like the debut and everything like that. I know that like one of my favorite things the Cloak does and other bands, well, I guess just like bands in general, but you guys do this a lot too, is when there's acoustic guitars over like distortion chords or something like that, like an arpeggiated chord like this over power chords.
Definitely.
I fucking love it, dude.
Yeah, I do too. I love throwing in acoustics and pianos and violins and cellos over that, and that's a lot of 80s heavy metal bands, like I mentioned, Dokken will do as well. And so like that's a huge influence on just production value and stuff like that. But yeah, I love, that's honestly my favorite part of recording sometimes, is doing the acoustic stuff and the like more like world instruments and just weird things that you can throw in there. Piano, we have piano on every record. Cello, horns is a new thing I really like using.
Yeah, it provides depth to everything, and I think when you're talking about, well, I guess we can get into one of the questions that I had in here. When you're talking about aesthetic or vibe, pageantry, a look that a band has, whatever that may be. What do you think that you learned from this band in particular about that? Because like I know that is a big part of what Cloak does, obviously, with even putting like a gothic influence on your stuff, which again is just as much as bringing in cellos and harps or pianos or whatever, like that it could be considered like gothic influence.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think this band stylistically looked cool. I think so. That was an influence for sure. Definitely more influential for us, like for starting out. I never really liked bands that didn't look the part, if I'm being honest, just even from youth. I listened to a lot of punk bands in my youth, and punk had an image.
Yeah.
Big spiky hair, big mohawks, all that shit. I bullet belt studs. Like I've always been into the bullet belt studs type of look. So then when it came to metal, I was into the studs and fire and bullet belts as well. So
Yeah.
it was just it's just kind of built into my character. But these guys kind of did something a little more toned down, but it had like a 70s rock and roll undertone to it, but it was also like very heavy metal, very like early Maiden with the leather, the leather pants and stuff like that. And then also, it had an 80s heavy metal tinge, but with 70s rock. It was pretty unique. Those Swedes just kind of know how to dress sometimes a little better anyways. So that it had a very Swedish look to it, honestly.
Cool.
So
this turn into the song that we're in now, Death Knows Where, is so good.
This song was definitely one where it came in and I was thinking, oh, this is a interesting riff. And also it's dry. Like the production is dry.
Very much so.
And what I read in an interview is they played the producer Sabotage from Sabbath that's where they got their tone influence from.
Interesting, because
and you can kind of hear it.
Yeah. I know that Sabotage isn't exactly the most favored record of the boys from Birmingham in that one.
I love it, though.
Dude,
I love that record.
It is, yeah. I mean, the title track on that one, I think it's a really, really underrated record, especially when you're thinking about like Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, Volume 4, Master Reality and stuff like that.
I do too. That Sabotage was actually the record that actually got me to love Sabbath. So I love that record. Yeah, I bought Paranoid when I was a young kid. I bought it in England, actually. I was on a trip with my family in like 7th, 8th grade or something. So I bought Sabotage I bought Paranoid because I was kind of getting into guitar playing, and then I liked the Sabbath guitar playing. I was like, yeah, I'll pick this up. Because I was like a punk kid, so like Sabbath wasn't really in my full radar yet, but always loved that record. But then when a friend of mine showed me Sabotage, my friend Mark, who lives in Richmond now, that record was the one where I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I understand this a little bit more.
Yeah, the side A on that one, man, with Hold the Sky, Symptom of the Universe, and Megalomania. Like, what the fuck are you doing on that one?
Yeah, and I think I remember hearing Megalomania on a skate video. So like hearing that again, I was like, oh yeah, I know this song. I've always known this song because like all the Sabbath was in so many skate videos as a kid. And I was like a big skateboarding fan. So
it's interesting. The first time I heard Megalomania was on Venom's Primeval record, which I don't think anyone who plays in the band now is even on that fucking record. But for some reason, of all of the Venom records that I bought from Tower Records, the first one I bought was Primeval. And
so with the Tony, who's in Venom Inc., sings on that.
Yes,
on that
yes,
one.
he does.
Yeah,
and
I like
in fact, I think
I have it on cassette.
Yeah, I think in fact that is the Venom Inc. lineup. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Now that Mantis and Abaddon are out, it's just Tony now. But it was the Venom Inc. lineup.
I got you. Yeah, they have a cover of that song on there. So I didn't even know it was a Black Sabbath song when I was 15 or whatever it was at first.
It's always funny hearing covers and then realizing years down the line that it wasn't an original song.
Can you remember one of those that happened for you?
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's hard, man.
It's definitely happened. There is one that Diamonds and Rust by Judas Priest.
Oh yeah.
That was it Joan
Baez? Yeah, Joan Baez. Yeah. That song actually was written about Bob Dylan.
Exactly. And I saw that biopic that just came out. So I looked it up more, and at the end of the movie I was like, oh, that's the girl who they cut, because I knew there was a cover. Yeah. But I did some research after the movie. I was like, oh, okay, she did Diamonds and Rust.
That's one of my favorite Judas Priest songs of all time.
Yeah, it's so good. So this song, I would say this the break of this song, A Buried Sun, where the lead, there's a certain lead that comes in the break. It's just emotionally crushing for me. It's just such a powerful section of the song. And there's a video, I think if you look up like In Solitude, Uppsala, they're like in some castle playing this song, and a production team went in there and filmed it.
Oh,
and
shit.
It's just raw. I think it's called the Darker Side of Uppsala on YouTube or something, but it's amazing footage. And you see like their friends up in the distance. There's a couple friends who probably helped with the setup. I think one of them is H Death from DGL, who plays in Watain now, but it just shows them in this castle setting up, and yeah, it's amazing.
The lyrics on this one go so fucking hard, and for some reason, I don't know, I feel like they're channeling a lot of Danzig in this song.
Yeah,
you know?
I could see that.
Like that kind of like
Danzig fan.
Yeah, that like kind of lurch that Danzig does in his solo stuff.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I have my theories about this record, because I remember reading an interview and he said something about something, basically I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines of something happened to me and that influenced this record, and that is the sister, because no one really knows what sister is. If you read the lyrics to Lavender, there's a lot of hints at like taking your own life. So I think there's suicidal undertones in the record, and then realizing like maybe like seeing the other side, seeing whatever comes next, and then kind of coming back to this realm. It can go deep, but I think there's themes of taking your own life on this record.
I think I picked that up as well, and that would kind of lend credence to the the refrain of he comes, right?
Exactly.
Like, death is always stalking, and he's right there, and I'm looking at it,
And even this lyric coming up here, it says, where is it? I am serene as Satan comes in yearning rifts where I may die. It's just, it's about seeing that other side, and then being dragged into that energy of what he sees as the devil or as death. Like you mentioned, he comes. There's lots of themes of taking your own life on this record, to be honest. Especially Lavender, especially Palette Hands in this song. But yeah, it's a dark record. It's darker than so many black metal records that try to say that they're dark. And even it's a like fucking dark record.
The music and the lyrics, I think, because like what you're hearing, what we're listening to right now, just sounds evil.
It does, and in a different way that you would think. Like this riff coming up here.
Is this the one that you were talking about?
Yeah, dude. It's so powerful. Yeah. And it's different because, again, it's like refrained a little bit. It's dry, but it's so powerful, especially after that building break where it's Pele singing those powerful lyrics as well.
Yeah, and then that bend that he was doing with the like, oh my god, that's just like you can't play that shit. That just stuff oh my god.
It's so good. And they I read in another interview that a lot of this really was all worked out in the jam space.
That makes sense.
It wasn't demoed on a computer. Which Cloak does a bit of. Like, I always start it on I'm in my home studio now. I always start it in here, and then I bring it to the band. But ever since we've been writing a new record now, and Matt, the new drummer, has been coming over, and we've really been like hashing things out more in person than we probably did on the previous one. So I think it's nice to be able to have like the time to do that more.
Definitely.
Just to get back into the old school flow of things when it comes to that.
Yeah, absolutely. How's writing going for you? I'm not going to ask you about any details or anything like that, but
no, it's been really good. I have tons of demo material, and then which I hash out fully, drums and everything, and then Matt, the drummer always changes some stuff, but we're about 2 songs in right now, just instruments. I always do the lyrics last, but we have a lot of ideas. Like the mood is set now. There's like a mood for the album, and I
Cool.
have been like toying with the idea of a conceptual album lyrically, so I'm trying to delve into that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, not necessarily a concept story album, but a conceptual album.
Sure.
Which ventures a little more into realms where we haven't really hit before. So I think it'll be cool.
Yeah, and it's a challenge. It's something new.
Definitely. Yeah.
So Matt is the new drummer, but you guys have known each other for a really long time, right?
Yeah, we've been touring with Matt since 2019, so it was just such a natural fit.
Yeah.
Because he kind of, he kind of went off and did some other bands like in 2023, and then when Sean decided to bow out in about a year ago, we were like a little lost at who we were going to get, because our friend Jesse, who covered for us on a few tours, he kind of had his hands tied in other things at the moment, and he couldn't do it because we were talking to him about doing it, and then I basically just kept going back to Matt. I was like, "You're the guy that we want to get. So what do we need? What do we need to do to make this work?" And he came around, and now it's great. He did the last two tours with us. He's such a good drummer though, and he's such like a wild live drummer, so people really like to see him live.
Cool.
But yeah, this is a great track.
Here we fucking go. See, I think that Pallid Hands, full stop, my favorite song on this record.
Yeah,
it was just so fucking good.
It's one of them. Yeah, it's probably might be right behind Buried Sun for me, but that riff right there is really unique too.
Yeah. This is one of those things that I feel like, when we were talking at the beginning of the show about, people listening to this in 2025 that haven't heard In Solitude will be like, oh no, this is this is definitely where like Tribulation got influence from, or, something like that, or that riff right there, I feel like is now influential to stuff that's came afterwards.
Yeah, and they've even admitted, I mean, they said like for Children of the Night that this album was a really big influence. I think this album was a huge influence for a lot of the Swedes, honestly.
I 100% agree on that one.
So I think this influenced kind of where Tribulation went.
Yeah.
And then they're on a kind of a whole new thing now.
Which I like. I don't know about you, but I really like the new Tribulation record.
I'm not a fan of it, to be honest.
But I knew that was going to happen with people.
Yeah, most people I know actually really like it. It didn't stick as well for me, to be honest. But,
and did you like Where the Gloom Becomes Sound?
I thought it was okay. I thought there was some good stuff. Maybe like Down Below a little bit more, but
Down Below was the record that I discovered them on, and I still think that's probably my favorite one, just because when you discover a band it's new. And I remember thinking, like, when I heard The Lament for the first time, I was like, this was the band that I wanted to be in high school, but I didn't know it at the time,
there wasn't a lot of stuff like that going around. They've changed. Like I said, nothing is gonna be probably the first two. Like, I really like the Horror as well, the Death Metal album. Nothing's gonna beat Formulas for me, but just because it was just time and place.
Of course,
I've admittedly fallen off the band a little bit within the recent past years.
Well, I've picked up where you left off, so it works.
No shade on them at all.
No, not at all. We are not we don't make fun of anybody's opinions or get mad at anybody over here. We want honesty. I knew that was going to happen, though, because, like, obviously with Jonathan Holton leaving, they were going to be, he was such a main driver of that band that obviously they were going to do something else. But they're the type of band that, hey, if you didn't dig that one, then maybe next time they'll come around with something that people will like instead.
Yeah, I'm curious where they're going to go next. Like, maybe that was just a one and done thing, and then they'll go back to the dirty vocals, or if they're going to just mix them now. I'll have to give it another shot. I listened to it twice, and it just didn't do it. There was just such a mystical thing about them in the early days that I think is lost on the last one especially, but the last few. But it happens.
It does.
But I think speaking of Swedish band, I think that last Watain record is like one of the best records they've ever done.
Oh yeah.
The Agony, record is so good. And it's funny, it's like, where would these guys be now if they were still playing? Like, what kind of stuff would they be doing, you know?
I think about that all the time. Like, would you also feel the same way about them because of this record, you know?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like,
else. I hate it.
I know, in a way, I almost appreciate that this was what they left us with, you know, last. So, because a lot of bands, like, it's like a TV show, it could go a little too long.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but which, that's a shitty way to view it. I mean, I want bands to do their thing and succeed, of course, but you're always going to have that time period of a band that has the special albums. So
yeah, and even bands nowadays, like, I'm not going to name any, right? But like, not even like legacy bands, but just bands that have been around since, let's just say, like the 80s or even like the late 70s or something like that, right? You know, sometimes you can just tell when like you pop into something and it's like, if you guys are inspired, it doesn't sound inspired, you know? It's just like you've got a 50-minute album full of like maybe 2 songs that I think would be okay in the live set, and like that's it. I was just talking with you know, on another episode about like self-editing and stuff like that, sequencing albums, and it's so easy to overstuff an album just because you feel like people need, you know, the music for the first time in 3 years or whatever it is.
I agree for sure, and then, but I think like I have the other side from an artist.
Of course,
I totally get why bands. Like Cloak has admittedly changed from the third record to the first record, or from the first record to the third record. I mean, we're sort of a different sounding band. You know, we still have our roots, but the fourth record is going to be even more in that direction of you know, it has more blast beats and it's a little harder sounding. Whereas the first record maybe was more reminiscent of stuff like this or you know, other stuff, but. So I get that why bands need to change. You don't want to write the same record over and over, unless you're Midnight, and then it's kind of cool.
yeah, Midnight Motorhead. But like also, and we have this conversation almost every episode, right? I love it when bands change. Not necessarily like we're gonna do a 180 and it's you know, not genuine or anything like that. But you know, one of my favorite bands is Baroness, and how different do they sound nowadays from what they were like 10, 15 years ago? But like their new record is like encompassing of all of their old records previously, but just in a new form.
Yeah, definitely.
And I appreciate artists like you, like them, like anybody, like most of the bands that I listen to, honestly, who are constantly wanting to push themselves forward and do something different and not repeat themselves. You know, if you've got a sound that sounds fucking good, stick with it and make bops and do that. If you could put out a 45-minute record that's, you know, start to finish, banger by just doing your formula, go for it.
Yeah.
But I definitely think like, especially in like, you know, heavy music and underground music, with the amount of like artists that there are that have their hands in different things, they're always trying to look for something else.
Definitely. And I think that's just a true sign of being that's the sign of being a true artist.
Yeah.
You're always going to want to develop your craft, and you're going to want to expand on what you've learned and what you're influenced by. That's spiritual stagnation if you're just doing the same thing or sitting, you know, it's like spiritual death when you just don't grow as a person or even as a listener. Like, I don't want to listen to the same bands over and over and over. I like finding new bands. I like finding new bands that are old too.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like new for me. I love just finding new music in general, or new movies. Like film is super important to me as well. I think just developing your craft as an artist, you're gonna change. And so like again, like going back to the bands we mentioned who have changed, I totally get it. I totally get why 100%. They do it. Yeah. But it's not for everybody.
No, certainly not. But I also think, I mean, you have to have balls too to be able to do that, because you have no idea how many people you're going to be fucking alienating after that, you know? Talk to Suicide Silence about that.
Yeah. Coming out doing all clean vocals or something like that is it's risky. And then I mean, even like Mastodon kind of did that as well. I've never been like a huge Mastodon guy, even though I'm from Atlanta, but I know that they went through like a huge shift in sound and they started doing more clean vocals. And then you have to emulate that live, and that's pretty difficult to do.
Yeah, especially because he plays drums and sings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was interesting. I've said this before, but I didn't come on to Mastodon when they were starting to get big. I remember a friend of mine let me borrow Leviathan in high school, and I was like, I don't know, I don't get it. And then it was a couple years. It was a couple years later, and then I was hanging out with my cousin who's a marimba player, and he was like, listen to Blood Mountain. And I listened to Blood Mountain, and it was fucking great. And ever since then, I've been more into the band, and I think that actually the last 2 records that they've done have been the best that they've done since Crack the Sky and the ones before that. But you're right, between those ones with like The Hunter and Last Time Around the Sun or whatever, they definitely did go to a spot, which I still like songs from that, but I definitely, they went not their like proggy sludgy way, but that's another band where people are like, give me back Remission and all those, and they're like, they already did it, everybody, like let them just do their fucking thing, because then we can get records like Emperor of Sand.
Exactly. And again, like I really don't listen to them that much, but seeing them live is another story. They're great live.
Absolutely.
And they've like a couple of the guys in the bands are friends with some of those guys too, and they're good guys. So it's cool to have a band come from our city that is that big too.
Very much so.
Represents, the city in a good way.
Which actually leads me into something that I'm curious about. So Atlanta, obviously very much known as a cultural city, and the history with rap and hip hop obviously goes back fucking forever. But what can you tell people about the underground and the metal scene in Atlanta that people may not know? Because like it definitely feels like, I mean, I'm in Nashville, it's 4 hours away, but it feels like Atlanta is just such a hotbed, if not right now, but has been for years, of just extreme bands and heavy music fans gathering there.
Yeah, it's a lot of people ask me this in interviews and stuff. Atlanta is really hard to describe. One, when people ask me about, oh, you're in like a dark band from Atlanta, weird. It's like hot there. We have, of course it gets hot in the summer, but we have the seasons, and also we are surrounded by forests. Like Atlanta is a city in a forest. It's very atmospheric. It has a vibe. It has like an old history that people I think tend to neglect. So we have, I think, that like spiritual and haunting setting. Like it has like a Southern Gothic feel to it. Especially out. We have these huge forests all around. I mean, I'm surrounded by trees in my neighborhood. Tons of places to hike. So I think people are missing that when it comes to thinking about black metal bands and dark metal bands coming from here. But like as far as the scene, so I guess my generation, we came up when bands like death metal band called Mangled that my good friends were in were around, Disfigurement, Hellgoat, who are a longtime black metal band, Vemure, Sadistic Ritual. All those bands were kind of my generation. We were coming up around 2009, 10, 11, when we were all 20, something around there. And what's funny is a lot of the prominent bands going and touring today all came from my high school.
Interesting.
It's very weird. So like Pat Davies from Vemure and Hellgoat, he went to Centennial, which was a high school I went to. Charlie from Sadistic Ritual went there. So there's a couple other people. There's this band Insomnia who's out on the road right now. Alex came from my high school in my area. So I don't know what it is about where I grew up, but a lot of us went on to do bands that are actually like still going and touring.
Wow.
So yeah, there's that. There's those bands that I mentioned. I would say the scene is a little more dry right now, but also I'm about to be 35 and there's a whole nother generation of kids doing things that I don't probably know about. There's like a punk scene that's doing stuff that I haven't kept in touch with in years. There's this band Churus, who's a black metal band who's actually really good, coming up, and they're young. They're like probably 10 years younger than me or more. So like I got to remember I was the young generation for so long in my 20s, and then I got to remember when I'm 30 there's the 20-year-olds
You're growing
college
up now, man.
kids
Age
coming
sucks.
in. Yeah, so and I still, I'm very in touch with the music scene and everything still. But it's different when you get a little older, it's different. Again, it's hard to describe, but then when we have big metal bands coming here,
That's
we
what I was
have
going to get to next.
huge
Yeah.
packed shows
Yeah.
at the Masquerade, at Buckhead Theater, at the Eastern. Like Atlanta is still a big city.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest in the South, obviously. So we have as far as big touring bands coming here, we have a good scene for people to come. Like people don't skip Atlanta. They skip like Nashville more than
Dude, I
Atlanta.
was literally going to bring this up where
Yeah.
especially after COVID, I understand sometimes, as you're aware, sometimes Nashville doesn't have the best turnout for smaller bands and stuff like that, right? And I get that you want to go to Atlanta where the city's bigger and you're going to have a more of a reach, because certainly with that, there's going to be people coming from like Alabama, maybe even parts of like Florida or North Carolina and Tennessee, all of those places congregating there. But over the past several years, the amount of tours that have come through that are like, I would have immediately gone to there, but even though it's like a 3.5, 4 hour drive, I can count on one hand the amount of shows that I've been to down there, because it is not a fun drive from Nashville to Atlanta. You get stuck in traffic at Chattanooga. You get stuck in traffic outside Kennesaw. It's fucking awful.
It's not easy. I've been up to Nashville a few times to see like Iron Maiden and some get, and like I love Nashville. I have friends up there. And that show we played with Imperial was sold out there. So like we have good shows there for sure.
Yeah.
But I see, it's weird. It's especially weird because Nashville is the music town, but it's maybe different kind of music, country and rock
it's very gatekeeped as far as that with the country music. And also just not only that, but one of the things that I found, one of the reasons why I kind of just stopped playing music for a really long time in general is because when I moved here, I was in like, a college band that I was like, oh, I want to do touring and stuff like that. And it fucking like fell apart within like 5 months or whatever. And I moved back home and then started getting on with my life. I wanted to like just play music with people around here, but everybody was just so fucking serious and took their shit so seriously and were so pretentious and were just so like, and maybe I wasn't finding the right people, but it's just like there is also a little bit of that where there is the people who have been working here for a little bit are very protective and guarded of that. And I've heard a couple of musicians say like, oh, I like Nashville, but sometimes the vibe, depending on where you are, is kind of weird. And it's like that can happen too.
Maybe a little more like way too taking things on like a studio professional level instead of trying to get out there and do the DIY things. What you mean?
Well, not only that, but I don't know, just like I guess this might be coming from like a personal standpoint too, but I always felt that the people that, the people that you meet that are always like, no matter what anybody else is doing, my stuff is better because I did X, Y, or Z or whatever. I get that feeling a lot from people. Not all the time. And I'm not like shit talking the entire city or something like that.
But I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I judge that stuff by how much people have gotten out there. Like if you're just doing your own shit in your own city for years and years and years and not getting out there and like bringing the band to other places, and I don't really see the point, but
I agree.
I mean, of course I see the point of being an artist and wanting to just create, but if you're wanting to be a band, a live band, can't just stay local. But if you want to be a band that just releases albums, so be it. Like,
and I've met people, whether through like, because we have fucking live music everywhere here, or so whether it's like at bars or whatever, I've met people that are content, like whatever, they have some career doing something in music, whether it's production or composition or studio engineering or whatever, and they are just totally fine to go, play at the honky tonks or play at the bar, do a little acoustic show or whatever. And honestly, those are the people that I like hanging around with more than the people that are like, oh, I'm gonna, get out here and do this, because I'm better than you type of deal. Like have ambition, but also treat people with empathy.
Yeah, for sure. It's tough, especially, I mean, how many times can we say it? Post-COVID, it's even more tough.
Yeah.
Everything is so expensive to tour. Everything involving tour is so expensive. It's really hard to be a band if you want to do anything of touring value, to be honest.
100%.
you have to do it. Like we do a lot ourselves. Me and the guitarist own a print shop, screen printing. So we do our own merch.
Cool.
So that helps a lot.
Yeah, and I'm sure that getting funds and capital in from doing other people's stuff as well helps a lot as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we do a lot of band stuff. We're the main hub for Kings Road merch.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
I've gotten stuff from there all the time.
Yeah, when they do bands like coming through the Southeast, they'll hit us up. So yeah, I mean we do a lot of bands. But yeah, I mean, just doing a lot of stuff yourself. Like I do all the music videos, like the editing and all that. We get like close friends to do the photos. I do a lot of the graphic design, Max prints. So it's just, you have to keep a lot in house.
Yeah,
but
dude.
Still, you're still spending tons of money to get out on the road.
Yeah, it's not enough just to want to be a musician and write music and everything like that. Now you have to do the job of like 7 bachelor's degrees in order to fucking get out there.
It's kind of frustrating because you think about back in the day and these people, all they did was just write music and play music, and that's all they were required to do. But I like the hands-on process of it, if I'm being honest, because I am a bit of like I'm OCD about things. Like I really like to have everything in house. It feels more personal, but I could do without having to book every fucking thing along the way when you're on the road and all that stuff. But like as far as like where we're gonna stay and all that, we're like, our guitarist is really good at doing that stuff. But yeah, there's just things that I could do without. Like I like to just stay in the creative process of things.
Man, we took a winding road because we started talking about the scene in Atlanta, and then all of a sudden we were there. But so that was my point basically, is just getting back to the tours that come through Atlanta. It's just like literally every band that you want to see. All the European bands go there, all the like the Finnish bands when they play there. Like Insomnium, I think, did a headlining show over there. I've never seen them live because they've never come to a big city over there. Yeah, anyways, fucking I don't get to Atlanta as much as I would like to.
Right.
I wish that there were like one of these days a train, Scott, like, right? Can we just have like the Europeans just take an hour to get from Nashville to Atlanta on a train?
Frustrating.
Like that.
Our train system kind of sucks here.
Yeah, I've been on the Marta, I know. I've been drunk on the Marta before.
Yeah, but even just in the States in general, are like, Europeans, they travel by train. Like we just can't get that down. I don't know why.
It's too late. I think we didn't start it in like the fucking 40s or whatever. I was in the Netherlands for the first time last year, and being able to go across the entire country in like an hour and a half on just like one train fucking blew my mind. Crazy.
Definitely. Yeah.
So we are on Horses in the Ground, which the bass in this song is out of control.
Yeah, I love that. This is actually another favorite on the album. We
went on a riff. We completely went through Sister.
Yeah, which is a great song. They played that live. They might have opened with this song, or Sister. I know they did Buried Sun. They did To Her Darkness from the second record.
Great song.
They did Witch's Sabbath from the first record, which is really good.
I haven't even heard the first record. I guess it might be on YouTube, but it's definitely not on streaming services.
It's on Spotify. It's really good. And another fact about this band is I think he was 16 when he recorded the vocals for that first record. He's like 2 or 3 years younger than me. So at the time when I was 23 at that show in 2013, the singer was only like 20.
God damn.
21 or something. So
it's like the first time I saw Trivium live was like Matt Heafy was 19 years old. It's like at Ozfest or something. I was like, what the fuck am I doing with my life?
It's crazy. Yeah. So I think he's like 2 years younger than me. So the first album came out in 2008. So I would have been 18. And he was like 16 when that first album came out. It's pretty wild.
What was their, you mentioned, their aesthetic, obviously, you mentioned was like the kind of 80s heavy metal, a little bit edgier with that. What was their, like, stage show like and their production like when they played?
Pretty stripped down, but I remember they had incense burning for every band the whole show, and that's something that's carried over with us as well.
Tribulation did that as well. I saw them at a European festival, and it was this whole fucking packs of these, just like there was like 7 of them across the stage. And there was more smoke in there in the tent than there was fog. It was great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, they did that. Honestly, their stage show was stripped down. I don't even.
That's what I expected, honestly.
Yeah, so I don't even think they had a backdrop. They might have had the sister album cover backdrop, but you know, when you're touring with Watain, like your stage show is gonna pale in comparison. Especially now, like Watain's stage show is insane now. But yeah, even like the album art is it's pretty like cut and paste, like on the inside. It's kind of like this weird obscure type of art.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, it's
cool. Whoa.
Yeah. It's just
interesting.
It's obscure and very
a heart with a Victorian photo in it or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Pele did a lot of the cut and paste art, which resonates with me as well, because I used to do punk flyers where I would cut and paste, and I had a zine, like I had a fanzine that I did one year in college, and I used all my college printing paper for free, so that was cool. But
well, you're already paying for it with your fucking tuition, so it's the least that they could give you.
Yeah, exactly. Artwork by Pele Almond. So yeah, he did all the layout and the artwork, designed by In Solitude and Eric Danielson from Watain. So they're all connected. But yeah, this last song's really good. But yeah, like cool band photo. Like their band photos were really influential for us.
Oh yeah.
Like very like stark black and white.
It's like you could see where Unto Others got their aesthetic almost right there a little bit.
Yeah, true.
It's like black. It is. It's like the perfect amalgamation of like Norwegian, like first wave of Norwegian black metal versus 80s thrash metal almost.
Yeah. Like later Testament or something like that.
Definitely.
Later Metallica with the all black, like black plain shirts.
Yeah.
That was something that came up. Like we don't wear logo shirts on stage, and that was always something that kind of was handed down, you know, through influence from bands like this, but then also through like Danzig, like late 80s or early 90s Danzig, late 80s Metallica.
Yeah.
Like I've always loved that just like bold black look. So like 89, Seattle 89 Metallica is like my favorite live show ever.
I love that one. I listened to that when I was getting a tattoo once.
Oh, nice.
It was great. It was great.
Yeah. But yeah, there's just tons of influential stuff that came about during bands of this era. Vorum was another one. They were another really cool like death metal band that was coming out around that time. This last song is really good too.
Do you want to listen to the bonus track, or are you fine with skipping that? I don't know how you usually listen to this. Spotify has a bonus track on this.
Oh yeah, that's the cover from Cortex.
Okay. I mean, we could skip that if you want, but or we can listen to it.
It's a good song. Yeah.
I like it. I think it's a nice little like cherry on top of the album, because this song is like really slow and doomy. I got a lot of like Candlemass from the very first verse. I don't know if that was intentional or not.
I could see that.
Yeah, but yeah, I understand ending with this one, but also having the nice little like I put in my notes the last song, the cover is like a little like after dinner like peppermint or something like that. You don't need it, but like if you have it, it'll feel good.
Yeah, palate cleanser.
Yeah.
I like the last track because and then I actually discovered the band Cortex through them because it's a cover song.
Yeah.
So that was cool. Of course, it's like an obscure 80s goth band that they cover. So, but yeah, this one definitely this is a unique song on the album. Like it's again, like you said, really drawn out. It's a perfect closer. I think nothing will beat their closer from World Flesh to Devil though. That song is a powerful closer.
Actually, so I want to talk to you real quick about that record because, at least in my mind, you can tell, a shift a little bit in the way that they were kind of going about music from that record to this record. That record sounded, like I mentioned before, it was like, he was doing a little bit more of like a Merciful Fate, King Diamond type of vocal voice without doing the like really higher theatrical thing. It was like a lower version of that. And I felt, like I said, it was more of a kind of like more 80s record than like heavy metal record than this. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think like what you said, it's very Merciful Fate mixed with like some Doom, Candlemass, but again, it's such a perfect blend of the heavy metal vocal, but it's low because he
Yeah.
had like a low talking voice too.
Yeah.
So I think like that. And I remember reading an interview where he said like he's never had singing lessons.
Hmm.
He was just like, I just go by feel and
Oh.
what feels right. Because actually, In Solitude started out as an Iron Maiden cover band when they
Oh, really?
were,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
when they were like little kids, like 12. So, in the early 2000s. So like he was a little kid, and you could actually find their early EPs on YouTube, and it's way different than any of this shit. It's
I
almost like
believe it.
it has like a little bit of like deathcore mixed it, not deathcore, but you know what the 2000s sounded like. It had
Yes.
like that vibe mixed into this like heavy metal thing. It's interesting to listen to. It's kind of funny, but
Yeah, and that's interesting because I do think his voice, the way that he uses his voice from that previous record to this one is very much, it does feel a lot different, and it gives the albums a very, I don't know, a different vibe about them, the way he's like more
it's
high.
more, yeah, it's
Yeah,
more like Nick Cave or something on this album, which
yeah.
he again has, that's very influential to these guys as well. They've stated in interviews. So it's much more obscure, abstract, and like a little more artsy. It's a little more artistic on this record for sure.
Yeah, both records
Rather
are good though, everybody. So listen to them both.
yeah.
Yeah,
The even the first one's great.
yeah.
Just
I'm gonna
straightforward
hunt
heavy
it
metal.
down on YouTube sometime after this.
Yeah. But yeah, this cover is really fucking good too.
I like it too. It's very like like Joy Division kind of like Depeche Mode in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Cortex is a cool band.
I haven't ever listened to them, so I have
Yeah,
to. I like this song a lot, so I'll have to check them out.
yeah. I think this song was it's been a while, but I think it was from an EP that they had with just two songs.
Mm,
And then they had a full-length album, I think. It could be on their full length, but I think it was just an EP. I remember I downloaded it after I learned about the band through this album.
I got you.
Because I love weird like 80s punk goth as well. There's a lot of like this band called Vex is pretty similar to Cortex.
Mm,
There was like a 80s punk crusty goth band called Deformed that was really good.
okay.
There's a band called Screaming Dead that was really good. There's a lot of like these obscure.
Screaming Dead feels like it rings a bell for some reason,
They're
but
really good. They
okay,
have like
I'm writing all of these down because I'm just like,
yeah,
please give me more music to listen to,
yeah.
Scott. I don't have enough in my life.
They were like an EP band. They were just a
Mm.
UK punk band basically, but they had a bunch of like EPs.
They are so underground, they never made any music.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's kind of like the new wave of British heavy metal. A lot of that shit was just like EPs.
Yeah.
Like early Trader's Gate and early, like even early Satan and Diamond Head and all that shit. It was like really minimal albums.
Yeah, it's like the Wild West basically, because they were just
Right.
fucking like poor British working class kids that were living in vans and just trying to play shows all the time.
Exactly. There's another band called 13th Chime that you could check
Ooh,
out. That's it's pretty
I like
pretty
that
out
name.
there. Yeah, they were like a goth UK band. All these bands sprung out of the punk scene. It was, the punk scene kind of died out after like 82, 83, 84, and then all these they went into doing, they either did metal or they either did goth. So like you had like English Dogs who were the metal heads, and then you had more like these like weird goth bands that were influenced by like the Batcave movement with Susie and the Banshees
Yeah.
and things like that. So
It's
yeah, there's a lot
interesting.
of cool stuff.
I'm gonna check that out because I've been going down more of a goth rabbit hole over the
Yeah,
past few years. We were talking about this actually, about like with all the bands that have kind of started to be influenced by them, even in like the metal or the black metal scene, right? To kind of like
Yeah.
work some of those songwriting sensibilities in. And yeah, like I never really listened to like a band like Echo and the Bunnyman before, but I've been
I love
like,
Echo.
yeah, I've been going through
Yeah.
their records and it just smoking weed at night,
Yeah.
reading and like doing stuff and listening to them, and it's been fucking great.
Ocean Rain is one of my favorite albums ever, and it's one of the best produced albums, I think.
Hell
Next
yeah.
Typo Negative, October Rust.
Love that record as well.
The production on both those records in different ways is amazing. Same with Cure, Disintegration. But I think a big goth band that has influenced metal bands is Fields of the Nephilim.
Fields of the Nephilim. I've heard of them, actually. I've never listened to them. I couldn't tell you anything about them, but I have heard that name.
You got to listen to the first 3 albums, but especially Elysium. That is an amazing nighttime record if you're wanting to get into
I will listen to it tonight because that is exactly what I could use tonight. Sorry. Like I said, I've been so fucking busy this week. I can't even keep my words straight. So
if you like Sisters of Mercy, you'll like Fields of the Nephilim.
Perfect.
It's basically a more rock version, but more mystical, and they're like more occult driven. So yeah,
all of those words that you said appeal to me.
For sure. Yeah, I would start with Elysium like immediately when we get off this call.
That's like legitimately that is what I'm going to do.
It's amazing. And then maybe go to the first one, Dawnraiser, and then to the second one. That's kind of the order of the first 3 in my opinion, but fuck
3-1-2. I could do it just like Chicago. All right, done. It's in there. Look, pattern recognition, what do you call it? Naming thing, I don't know, naming devices, it'll be in there. So, Scott, that was In Solitude's Sister. I know we've been talking about it a lot, but as you get through this again, final thoughts on this record, my friend.
Not anything I haven't said yet.
Sure.
It's one of my favorite records ever. If people haven't heard it that are, tuning into this, definitely check it out if you liked what you've heard when we were chatting about it. But give it a deep listen and give it a few more deep listens after that if you don't
very much.
If it doesn't click with you at first. It's just an extremely special record, and I don't there's nothing before it and there's nothing after it that's going to sound like this record.
I agree. And you've heard us talking about all of the different bands that it has influenced, as well as, I mean, if you're here because you like Cloak, then fucking what you've probably already heard this record then, but if you hadn't, get on it, my friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
All right. Well, I think that we can leave it there. Is there, before we go, obviously, so I know that you're working on new material. I won't ask you about anything yet because I know it's still in the gestation period, but is there anything in 2025 that people can be looking forward to from Cloak? Or are you finally going to just take a little bit of a breather from all of the touring and work on the new record? The
latter, actually. We don't have anything booked. We're cool. Getting a couple offers here and there, so we might get back out there in the fall. Either US or Europe, but right now we're solely focused on writing because we signed to Metal Blade Records, so we're gonna put the 4th record out on that.
Fuck yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. So we're excited. Yeah, we're excited for a change and to, change in many ways, a new label, a new lineup, new album. So it's gonna be a good, thoughtful year for sure.
I love that. And Metal Blade Records also signed very recently an incredible Italian doom metal band called Mesa. If anybody is listening to them, or if anybody is listening to this and hasn't heard that band, they're fucking incredible. The
M-E-S-S-A?
M-E-S-S-A, yes. They call themselves Scarlet Doom.
Okay. We played, they played one of the festivals we played on the last tour, I think.
Yeah, they're very much more, I don't want to say progressive doom because that might turn people off, but their vocalist Sarah is like probably one of the best voices that I've heard singing in a band right now. Wow. And they have a new album coming out. They're first on Metal Blade later this year.
Awesome.
And yeah, dude, all of their records are good. So you are now label mates with them, and Metal Blade is fucking great. So congrats on that again. And Scott, it was amazing chatting with you. It felt like, we could probably talk for just 4 hours about music and In Solitude and Cloak and everything else under the sun. So I appreciate you sharing your time with me and listening to this band and this record that you love so much, dude.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on. It was a very unique way to do an interview, so I appreciate that.
Absolutely, man.
Against the
That was Scott Taysom, guitarist and vocalist of Atlanta's Cloak, taking us through In Solitude's Sister. Huge thanks to him, not only for sharing the album and his personal connection with it with us, but also for putting the album on my radar a few years ago to begin with. I appreciate that Cloak paints with a wide palette, and there's just as much stuff like In Solitude, Fields of the Nephilim, or Rainbow that could be found in their music as there is Emperor and Watain. Do yourself a favor and go check out any of the 3 Cloak albums that are bouncing around out there right now. Black Flame Eternal is my personal favorite, but 2019's The Burning Dawn is also a really killer record and criminally underrated as well because of the unfortunate release timing right before the pandemic. I'm hoping they can soak up that rest that Scott was talking about and come around soon with another fearless black metal offering. Congrats on the signing to Metal Blade Records, dudes. We will be waiting for a new album whenever it comes around. So that wraps things up for today. Friends, headbangers, metalheads, foes, frenemies, and the like. Thank you so much for listening and for checking out the show. Let me know your thoughts on Sister, on In Solitude, on Cloak, or any of the things that we talked about today by leaving a comment below or shooting me a line at spinningthewax@gmail.com. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy what you see. Also, leave us a nice review on Spotify or Apple Music if you can, if that's your preferred listening method of choice. If you're feeling extra generous, head over to patreon.com/spinningthewax, where you can support the show directly and get early access to these shows, uncut episodes to sync the album to, new music updates every week, and so much more. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, my friends, when night drummer Patrick Crawford dives so far into the Savatage discography that he brings us the potential Savatage album that never was in maniacal renderings by John Oliva's Pain. That's next time, my friends, on Spinning the Wax. Until then, stay safe, stay sane, stay heavy, stay pumped. See you on the other side, everyone.